Yes, hello guys, and welcome to my new Redstone series, Redstone with Ripper, with of course me, your host, Ripper. Now, for those of you who don't know, this series is actually a kind of a reboot of one of my old series which premiered. I had a look at the dates and it premiered about 2 years ago as of today. And it was, well, I think the first Redstoning with Steve I did was around about, I think it was for my 100 subscriber special. I brought out a new Redstone series, which was Redstoning with Steve, of course. This is a reboot of the Redstoning with Steve series because it was so popular back in the day. A lot of people loved it, and I really wanted to get back into it after a fairly long hiatus. I think my last Redstoning with Steve video came out, I would say, about a year ago now. So basically, Redstoning with Steve is, or was, and Redstone with Ripper will be a series, of course, about Redstone. And basically, my aim with Redstoning with Steve was to give people an understanding of Redstone. Now, what do I mean by an understanding? Well, I know that you can watch a lot of people. I'm not going to name any names of some popular Redstoning YouTubers, but you know who they are. You guys know who they are. They do a lot of Redstone tutorials. They do Redstone tutorials for a lot of builds they do, and they go through and they say, this is where you put this block, this is where you put this bit of redstone dust, this is where the repeater goes, etc., etc. And they show you how to build it. So you take it off, you take it off their video, you go build it in your world, and, you know, you don't really get anything out of it, in my opinion. You don't really get anything out of it. I know a lot of people, I could say, most likely a lot of you out here listening to this would have some Redstone devices in your single player worlds or your multiplayer worlds or whatever that you don't really know how they work. So my aim of this series is to give you an actual understanding of the Redstone mechanics behind stuff you build. And for that reason, I'm not going to show you how to build super large, super compact things in this series. That's not what this series is for. This series is for you to learn, for you to come and actually see the mechanics behind the Redstone and understand how it works, so you can just be like, oh, I want to build a Redstone device one day. I don't know, you say, I want to build double extender. I need a double extender for something. And instead of going to a video and learning how to, and not learning how to build it, and seeing how to build it, you can just go like, oh, I know how that works. You just do this, bam, double extender. So that's the kind of point of this series, and I think I've talked long enough, so I think we should get right into it right now. Okay, guys, so this episode is entitled Back to Basics, as you well know. It is going to go over pretty much all the basics of Redstone, pretty much all the devices, how they work. Yes, it is going to be a very basic episode, but, you know, we got to start somewhere. A few things about the series first. Yes, I will be going over, as I said, a lot of basic stuff, but make sure you stick around, even if you think you know a lot about Redstone. I still find myself learning more and more stuff about Redstone every day that I didn't know before. I know a lot about this stuff. Like, I've been using it for a long time. Also, I want to keep these episodes to around 10-15 minutes, so short, bite-sized for you guys. I don't want them to be too long. I have a feeling this one will run over time, just because I have to get through a lot of stuff. But don't worry about that. They're not all going to be this long, I guarantee it. And one more thing, you may notice stuff disappears in some clips. That's because I record these out of order sometimes, so don't worry about any of that stuff. So without any further ado, we'll get on to the very basics of Redstone. The bread and butter, should I say, the bread and butter components of Redstone. They are your redstone dust, your redstone torch, and your redstone repeater. Of course, you will be very hard pressed to find any redstone device that does not include all of these three things, and extremely hard pressed to find a redstone device that doesn't include any of them. I challenge you to find one. But we've got the three bread and butter components. We've got the redstone dust first. Redstone dust, very basic. Your absolutely basic redstone wire. It's also called redstone wire, or also referred to as that. You've got redstone dust. It can be powered from any of the four directions by a redstone torch, which provides power, which we'll get to in a sec. It can also be powered if it's on top of a block that is receiving power. So if we put the redstone torch here, it is providing power to this block, and therefore the redstone will be powered. So that's how that works. It must be said that redstone, when it is in a dot form as such, it is actually pointing in all 4 directions. So what I mean by that is if we go back to this as before, this redstone dust is pointing in all 4 directions. And if we grab something like a redstone lamp, which simply, if you provide power to it, it will turn on. We can see that one turns on, that one turns on, that one turns on, and they're all on. So we can see this redstone dust is pointing in all 4 directions. If we break that and put a redstone dust here, we can see these turn off because we have modified the redstone dust to be only pointing in this direction, and therefore this lamp will turn on. Now there are actually a couple of applications to this kind of thing you can use, but it's a bit complex for this episode, so I'm not going to go into that. So that's basically how your redstone dust works. There's not too much to it. One more thing to note is that when you apply power to redstone dust from a redstone torch, this power will travel 15 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And on the 16th, you can see the redstone dust is not lit up. You can see here we've got little particles coming off it, and this one doesn't, so it is not powered. And if we put a redstone lamp here, you can see it will not be powered. So that's your redstone dust. Your redstone torch, I've already explained a few properties of it. It will power a block as such, and you can see it'll power it from all sides. The redstone torch can also attach onto walls, and it will power blocks as such, like that. Very good. The redstone torch in electronics terms is called a NOT gate. I'm not going to try and explain in too much detail what that is for people who are unfamiliar with electronics, but a NOT gate is basically something that is always on, but when you provide power to it, it turns off. So in binary, it is always in the 1 state, and then when you provide power, it goes to the 0 state, i.e. the off state, where 0 is off and 1 is on. So that makes it an extremely important component because I think, I don't do electronics or anything, but I've heard that you can create any logic gate from a series of torches or NOT gates. So you can create any gate from just torches and any logic gate from just torches and redstone dust. If my understanding is correct. Someone that does electronics, feel free to correct me because I'm not 100% sure. The last one we've got is the repeater. Now the repeater has actually 3 different functions, and it's a very, very useful device. Its first is as a repeater. So if we go, we can see these are the same length. We'll go all the way along and we get to the 15th block. You can see this one is not powered, but if we put a redstone repeater on the very last block, we can see that this has actually gone back to full power. So a redstone repeater will take any signal, we can even take it from here, and it will repeat it back to full power. So this is actually a power of 15 again. So that's its first function. Its second function is as a diode. For those of you who don't know what a diode is, a diode will only accept power from one direction and only push power in one direction. So if you try and apply power to a diode backwards, it will not work. Or it won't work in the traditional sense, I could say. It's a bit more complicated than that. But basically, if you apply power to the back of a repeater, it will work as normal. However, if we put the repeater backwards, you can see these are in the opposite directions, and we apply power, you can see the repeater does not light up, nothing happens. It does not pass the power through, and this is the diode function. So that's pretty much all you need to know. It will also not accept power from the side, doesn't do anything. There are a couple of properties of repeaters. As such, you can lock repeaters as such, but it's not particularly useful for this basics tutorial. The last one, or the last function, is as a delay. So we can see we've got a kind of row here. If we right click the repeater, we can see this torch move. Now this is a delay setting. We have the default when you place it is a 1 tick delay, which is the same as a torch. So this is 1 tick delay, right click it is 2 ticks, right click it again is 3, and right click it is the max delay of 4. Right click it once more, gets it back to 1 delay. So we're going to set this to 4 delay, which is the maximum delay. We're going to break this dust, break this torch, and we're going to supply power to both of these. So we're going to put 2 redstone torches. Now this one will turn on 3 ticks sooner than this one. And you can see this one is clearly turning on earlier than that one. And in the opposite directions, it will work. So this one will turn off before this one, as you can see. For those of you who don't know the technical jargon of Minecraft, a tick is approximately 1/20th of a second. It's how the game measures time. But in this, when I talk about redstone, when I say a redstone tick, it actually is 2 ticks. So it's actually a redstone tick is 2 game ticks. So a redstone tick is approximately 1/10th of a second, if you want to know. But basically, a tick is just the time it takes for a redstone torch to turn off or turn on. So that's all I've got to say on the basics. We should move on to the next row now. So the second row here is just a couple of secondary devices for redstone. So the first one here is, of course, the piston, or this one is the sticky variety, which is, of course, when you combine a slime ball with a regular piston. Now, the sticky piston, as most of you will know, you can power it just like any other redstone device, redstone torch next to it, and it will push blocks. Well, a regular piston will just push blocks. Well, of course, the sticky piston will pull blocks, of course. So just like that, they can face any direction, left, right, up, down, any of those. You can see, just power them like that. Very, very simple. There are plenty of uses for these pistons, which we'll get to in later episodes. But for now, these just push and pull blocks. That's all they do. The next one is the redstone block. Now, I included this just because it is usually used in conjunction with sticky pistons. So usually you can use sticky pistons to push and pull these as such. And what these do, what they're usually used for, is if you have a redstone line here, power the sticky piston, and the redstone block actually provides power to the redstone line. Now, a redstone block simply provides as much power as a redstone torch. So they are, for all intents and purposes, the same thing, unless you want to push and pull. So if you're going to use a redstone block where you could use a torch, you probably may as well use a torch because it's less redstone. My last one here is, of course, the comparator, which is something that was added in the redstone update. Of course, now the comparator has a few unique uses. It acts a little like a repeater, with one key difference. You can see, actually, what I'll do is I'll do a long redstone line. You can see the redstone line is dark there. Now with the repeater, of course, it gets bright again. You can see the difference. With comparator, it simply passes whatever signal was in this line through to the other side. So you can see these are of roughly the same brightness. But what basically a comparator does is it will compare signals. So if we put a signal in, you can see this turns off. Basically what a comparator does is it takes the signal coming in the back and the signal coming in from either of the sides and compares them. If the signal coming in the back is stronger than the signal coming in the side, it will activate. So if we do that, you can see it will activate with whatever is coming in from the back. But if the signal coming in from the back is weaker than the signal coming in from the side, it will turn off. So that's what a comparator does. The first functionality. The second is the subtract function. So this is the subtract. You just have to right click it as you do for repeaters. So right click it when this thing is up, it is the subtract function. And instead of, we can see in this stage, it just outputs whatever's coming in the back in the normal setting, but in the subtract setting, it will actually take whatever power this is, in this case 15, and whatever power this is, in this case 14. 15 minus 14, subtract function, 15 minus 14 is 1. This is actually a power of 1. If we put it here, we can see there is no power there, so that is indeed a redstone power of 1. There's one more functionality, which I'll cover in the next part of the video. So my last row here is a couple of devices that will interact with redstone. There are plenty more than this. There is stuff like doors, trapdoors. There's a couple of other things as well, but they're not very interesting because they won't, while you can power them with redstone, they won't actually interact with redstone. Fence gates as well, that's the other one I was thinking of. these things will actually interact with redstone, mostly with comparators. So we're going to start with the dropper and dispenser. You can see this one is a dropper, this one is a dispenser. What these do in their basic functionality is just when powered, output items. See if you can hear that. We'll just chuck one in there and one in there. I assume this will power both of them. And you can see they both dropped the item. Now, the difference with a dispenser and a dropper is simply that the dispenser, this one's the dispenser, if you put something like a bucket of lava here or a bucket of water or stuff like splash potions, it will actually throw them out. So if we put a bucket of water in here, it will actually drop the bucket of water out of there. But if we put it in the dropper, it will actually spit out the actual item bucket of water. So a dropper will only ever drop items, while a dispenser can actually be used to dispense water and things like that. So that's the difference. I'll get that back just because I'm a bit OCD like that. But what else these things can do is if we grab a dispenser, they're identical in function. They actually interact with the comparator. So we'll put a redstone line out here. We'll put one item in this. And you can see the comparator has actually detected the item inside the dispenser here. I had to check which one it was for a sec, because I can never get it right which one's which. So basically, however many items we put in the dispenser, the comparator will output a respective signal. So if we put almost a stack of items, we can see that we have a power of 2. If we just put 1 in, we can see we only have a power of 1, as you can see there. So that's the difference. Now, a comparator will actually function with literally anything that holds items. So we can also grab a chest. It will also function with that. We put items in the chest, and you can see we get an output. And weirdly, it will also function if we go to detector rail. Also function with either a minecart with chest or a minecart with hopper, if it's on top of a powered rail as such. So you can see as that, or actually, sorry, a detector rail, should I say. So that's really cool as well. The next thing we're going to move on to is the hopper. We'll get some stuff out of our inventory, grab a hopper. These things react the exact same way with the redstone comparators. So we'll just chuck items in. You can see it outputs a signal. What also the hoppers will do is pass items from each other. So if we set it up, this will actually pass items to that. But if you actually power a hopper, it will lock it. So this, I think it won't accept items. Okay, so I got it wrong. It will accept items, but it won't pass items through, I think, is the functionality. So we do this. Let's see that this hopper is powered. And you can see that this is not passing through. You can see there is no item in this bottom hopper. So this is locked as it is being powered by this redstone line. Will not pass any items through. If we break this redstone line, it is no longer being powered, and you can see it has passed the item through. So those are the functionalities of the hoppers, and as before, we will go over hoppers in a later episode in full detail. My last one here, I thought I just might as well chuck it in. The daylight sensor, it will just simply detect however much daylight you've got. Right now, we're absolute midday, so it will detect it will actually output a power of 15, and as it gets darker, so if we do time set 18,000, we can see it's dark. It is actually midnight. It will output 0 power, and of course, if we go time set 0, you can see it is outputting a fairly low power. It's not very bright, but if we go back to time set 6,000, you can see it instantly gets brighter there, if you could see that. So it will basically output depending on the brightness. So to finish off this video here, guys, I'm just going to be finishing up with all the input methods of Redstone. So I believe I got them all here, or at least almost all of them that are actually player activated. So we've got the lever, we've got stone pressure plate, wooden, iron pressure plate, which you can see outputs a lower signal because it depends on the weight of whatever you're carrying, I believe. Gold pressure plate, which outputs a very low signal as well. I believe it's what you're carrying, is it? I've never really... So I'm not really sure how they work. I'll actually have to look that one up. You'd think I'd be an expert on this, but these will actually activate. These last three will actually activate with items on top of them. So if we go through, check some on that. So that one will activate full power with any item on it, and the iron and gold ones will activate the more items you put on them. So I'm not sure if I can put enough items. I'll get it's Control Q. I've got an entire stack on there and it hasn't activated more, so you have to put a lot of items on them to get them to activate a bit more. What I'll do is I'll chuck some on there. And you can see we've actually got a power of 2 now. As before, if we only put one item on, it only gives a power of 1. So the more items you put on both of these, the more they will output. We have stone button, wooden button, which are identical. People think they are different. They are not. They have I believe exactly the same code. So they're actually irrelevant. It's just one can be activated by an arrow, I believe. So I'm not going to test that now. You can try it for yourself. And the last one, which is a tripwire hook. So if we shift click, or actually we don't need to shift click, we can just right click string side there. And if you see the redstone line behind it, lights up whenever we go through the tripwire as such. So that's all the input methods, and that brings us to the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching this video of basics. We went through all the little things you need to know to get started on Redstone. So if you're interested, be sure to leave a like, be sure to encourage me. Let me know your ideas if you want me to feature something on this show. I've got quite a few ideas already, but there may be something I missed that may be one of your favorite redstone mechanisms. So be sure to leave your comment. Tell me if you liked it. Tell me if I should do anything different, all that kind of stuff. But apart from that, thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time, guys. Hope you enjoyed. See you later.